We all strive for the best, the zenith. But while many of us in sim racing may reach our own personal goals, we admire those who run the actual Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars in competition. Tonight, we are going to see just how good everyone is in our second PCA Pro GT3 Cup Series event, sponsored by Porsche. I'm your host, Joshua Lee, and with me in the booth tonight is Michael Johnson. We have Cameron Auburn on social media tonight, along with Ryan Bauer producing, who is using cameras provided by Tuggy Beard. Let's talk again about this new series in PCA Sim Racing, because it's a bit different from the normal series and events that you can see here with PCA. Well, first of all, there are two race classes tonight, PCA Pro and Pro. The difference being that the PCA Pro are drivers who have had to earn their way into tonight's racing by their solid performance in PCA Sim Racing Series 1 through 7. Some very good drivers are competing in Series 8, which is currently underway. A top 10 finish in Series 8 points is the only way that drivers can get into this series. Then, on the other side, the pro drivers are, well, just that. They are drivers who have raced in the sim racing world, but are also members of professional racing teams who are running the GT3 Cup 992 car in 2022. Teams include 311 RS Motorsports, ACI Motorsports, Apoapsis Performance Solutions, Eagles Canyon Racing, Hardpoint Motorsports, and others that will be joining us later in the series. And Michael, as we get ready for all of tonight's action, just dissecting round one and heading into this second event, there's a lot on the line for these drivers, and a race one just finishing, and a lot of the familiar faces we saw at the top of race one were at the top of this one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've kind of cut the wheat from the chaff. Everybody's found out where they kind of sit. And I think tonight we're going to watch several races going on. And I'm not saying we're going to have pros and PCA pros. There's actually a really good overlap. There's some PCA pros in the front. There's some pros towards the back. A lot of it comes, especially in the pro world, I can tell you personally, that it's very difficult for us to transition from a real car to a simulated car, because there's so many things we're just missing that we're used to using. Now, a lot of these guys transition very quickly, and you'll see that tonight in this race. You're going to see some of the real world pros who have figured it out, who do have the touch when it comes to transitioning into the simulated racing world. So I think it's going to be a really good race for us tonight. This is a treacherous course, very bumpy. The walls are very close, and if there's not a wall there's going to be a fountain. So, you know, pretty much everywhere is something that's trying to take you out. So I think it's going to be an enjoyable race. I think these guys really are going to be very smart around each other, because everyone wants to make it to the end of the race. And I think we're just going to have a wonderful time watching some amazing racing.
I mentioned race number one being over tonight. We're currently in that middle warm-up period before we get ready for race number two tonight. But it's time to bring in Ross Bentley from Speed Secrets. And Ross, of course, talking about this Long Beach street circuit. There's a lot of treacherous corners on this track. Which ones to you are the most treacherous, if it's not the entire track as a whole?
Well, I would say anything with walls around it is treacherous, which is all of Long Beach. Yeah, it's a difficult track, and it's difficult and treacherous because there's a couple places that are so inviting that drivers get a little brave, and usually the walls win.
You mentioned those inviting portions of the track, and I take that as a bit of a passing opportunity, because then when you're diving into these corners, maybe you're getting a little bit too overly confident, and like you mentioned, ending up in that wall. And which one of these corners is the best passing opportunity, and where can drivers really make moves on this course? Because just looking at it at a glance, it looks so thin, these turns look so tight that it looked very difficult to make anything work.
Well, Turn 1 and Turn 9, the front straight and the back straight, are the two obvious places to try to outbrake another car. Turn 1 is actually pretty wide when you come down into it. The problem is it then funnels into a very narrow area around Turn 2. And it's one of those places that, because it's so wide, and race drivers being race drivers, they look at that and go, oh, it's inviting me to stuff it down the inside and just send it down the inside of somebody. So you see a lot of passes go bad down there because the car, the track goes around that left-hander, but immediately goes back to the right, and that's tempting for that driver that's being passed to try to hang on and fight the pass off. So it's a tricky place because of that, and we've seen a lot of cars crash through the years down in that area. Turn 9 is a great place to pass. It's obviously all about getting the run out of turn 8, but the tricky part about turn 9 is the track is fairly bumpy. So you move to the inside to try to outbrake somebody, and the car starts bouncing around. And again, that's why we see a lot of issues there. And the track has these two big braking zones. Even turn 6 is like that a bit. But drivers think that it's all about outbraking, but outbraking starts with how well you get out of the previous corner. So really, the trick here in making a pass is how quickly you get out of the previous corner. And that's tricky because that hairpin coming onto the front straight at Long Beach that place is tight.
It's funny, Ross. You preach the exact same thing I do. I wonder where I got it from. I can't imagine.
So you've been around too.
I've been around quite a while too, and taken many pointers from you. And I think you have it exactly right. It's that exit of the corner that's really going to give it to you. As we've watched in previous races, some people just try to outbrake themselves, which becomes a lethal moment. Now, at this track, what do you think is going to be, besides the hairpin, because I think that one may be a little bit too obvious, but what is going to be the lethal point on this track for these drivers trying to get around here?
Well, turn 1, again, because it's so inviting, but turn 6 is a tricky one. Drivers will get a good run out of turn 5, think they've got a passing opportunity going into turn 6, but that passing zone, turn 6 is actually faster than it looks. So the passing zone is actually pretty short. And, even if you're 5-10% better on the brakes, which is a lot in a spec series like this, even if you're 5 or 10% better than another driver, that's not quite enough to get the car right up alongside somebody. So you see a lot of cars kind of stuff it down the inside, and then they're going wheel to wheel, side by side, going through there, banging doors. And usually the driver that tries to make the pass there loses out, because then they get to turn 8 and they're offline then.
Yeah, they end up being in a bad position. Now, talking about being too wide through some of these places, let's talk about the hairpin for a moment. So the hairpin, can you go too wide? I mean, real life and the sim are going to be a little bit different. In the sim, it seems to be really challenging. Do you think it's going to be wise for these guys to try to go in there and maybe stuff it up the inside or make the pass around the outside? Is it going to be possible?
Well, you use the word wise. And with racing, when they go wheel to wheel here, door to door, I mean, is it wise? Rarely does it work out. If somebody makes a mistake, then you can make a pass in there. But it's, if you have two drivers that are equally matched or fairly equally matched, nobody's going to make a good pass through there. It's pretty rare that happens. And usually what ends up happening is both cars end up losing. Either they get tangled up, or they're so slow coming out of the car behind gets a big run, and then they've got an opportunity to outbrake them going down into turn 1. So is it possible? Yes, it's possible. The Porsches are surprisingly nimble for a production-based race car. And, we see Indy cars go through there side by side every now and then, but usually that doesn't work very well as well. But you're going to see, I would be shocked if we don't see some wheel-to-wheel, side-by-side through turn 11 there.
Now, of course, Ross, you've mentioned all of the danger spots on this course. Now, what if a driver does get into a bit of danger, maybe spins the car around? Where are the best opportunities for them to get back going forward on this course? Because we know race car drivers, they do not like to give up. So maybe a tap to the wall, maybe a short spin, that shouldn't be the end of their race.
Turn 1 is got a big runoff area down there, and you see a lot of cars get down there, turned around. You can do a little bit of that in 5. There's a bit of room there. 6. Turn 9 is another place where there's a little bit of room down there to get turned around and get back on track. But other than that, if you're going through the carousel turn 10, there isn't really a whole lot of room out there. You get out there and you can bring the car back, but then you're immediately stuffed into the hairpin alongside somebody else, and we know that's difficult. So the key to Long Beach is being precise, it's being accurate, it's being consistent, and not spinning, not banging off the walls. And I am sure that we'll see some drivers who maybe are not super, they're not the fastest, but they're going to come home with a really, really good result by just staying clean.
Of course, this track so famous when it comes to both sports car and open wheel racing in the United States. Any final thoughts on this track, and maybe any quirks of this track that you haven't mentioned yet that could bite these drivers, or just general quirks about this track that are interesting to you?
Well, Long Beach is it's one of my favorite places. It's the first place that ever watched a Formula One Grand Prix. And the history of Long Beach, starting with Formula 5000, then Formula One, then Indy cars, and then, as you said, sports cars with IMSA and World Challenge and everything. But I went to, when I was a teenager, I went to the Long Beach Grand Prix in 1978, I guess it was, and saw my hero, Gilles Villeneuve, win the Formula One race that weekend, which was pretty spectacular. And then going back there and racing there myself, it's the crowd, the atmosphere. I mean, it's as close to a European style race and that atmosphere of anything else. So it's tricky. And, through the years, the track has changed a little bit. So just when you think you've got it nailed, they do some little tweak with moving a curb or something like that. And you come back the next year and it's difficult. The drivers that take the time to really study the track beforehand, do a track walk, whether it's simulated or real, they're the ones that usually have an advantage.
So, Ross, there are a couple of spots on this track, turn one, and then I think right before the Firestone cutover, where there is kind of an escape route, an escape road-ish sort of thing. Do you see that being utilized much in this race, or do you think people are going to just try to make the corner because, well, it's not a real race car and there's nothing to pay for?
Great point. I mean, one of the you mentioned the word wise. The wise drivers will be able to make that decision. Can I make it or can I not? And if they feel that they cannot, they'll use the escape road, turn the car around and carry on. I'd be surprised if there wasn't a driver or two that makes an unwise decision thinking, I'm going to make it, and they don't quite make it and smack the wall. So being aware of those escape roads is really important.
Yeah, one of the things I teach when I'm doing sim training here with people is, especially in a car like this without ABS, is if you think you're going to lock it up and you're not going to make the turn, look for that escape route, know where it is. Now, I know I keep using wise and race car driver in the same sentence. I think there are a few of us, you and I think, have been doing this long enough. We can count ourselves as wiser-ish. I tend to teach people what I call the 3 Ps. First is patience. Patience brings you the very next thing, which is precision. And then when you've got those two together, you get the speed where you can pester the ever-living whatever you want out of the person in front or behind you. Is that a wise thing for these racers to try to employ here at such a difficult, tight circuit?
I like the 3 Ps. In fact, I'm going to add that would lead to the 2 Ws, wise and win.
Yes.
Because I think you're dead on there. Is you've got to be patient in some of these places, and like I said, the precision part is absolutely there. I love your pester people, so I'm going to use that. That's great.
Just put an asterisk in your on your thing, and give me a little credit, maybe.
Absolutely, you'll get all the credit for it, and you'll get all the pay for it as well.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Okay. So, have you had an opportunity to drive the sim, to drive iRacing, this track and this car?
Not this car. I have not. Unfortunately, I did some stuff with the prototypes last year, I guess, at Long Beach, and but I've not had a chance to drive this car. Which this car is a blast on the sim. So I just haven't had a chance to connect the two of them.
So when you drove the prototype, was it the LMP2 or one of the LMP ones? The LMP2.
LMP2, yeah. That's Long Beach is a busy place in an LMP2 car.
Yes, it is. And I got to say, the hairpin is unusually difficult in that car. I kind of wish they also had the Ligier instead of just the Dallara, because I think the Ligier in real life, I don't know if they would map it the same way. I just didn't have quite the turning angle. And I felt like in real life, driving the Ligier, I had an easier time going around tighter corners. I don't know what your experience has been with that.
Yeah, you almost feel like you're going to have to stop and do a 3-point turn, back it up, and turn it again. So, but to your point, the only way to get through there is to have really great patience and precision on the entry. Because if you mess that up just a tiny little bit, turn in slightly early, yeah, you're going to run out of road coming out.
Oh, yes, you will. Now, it's always interesting to watch, especially in regular iRacing, where people will set up and do a rolling start and try to go too wide through there instead of working it out. And I think that can be a challenge for people sometimes. But I think we're going to have to wrap this up. Any quick last words you have?
I want to see a clean race with people just battling and pestering each other, but a clean race where people show their 3 Ps and somebody comes away with a wise win there. So I think it's going to be fun.
I'm going to take the wise win, and you can take the 3 Ps, and we'll give each other credit for them.
Perfect.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for being here, Ross. I think now, though, we are going to go to the grid.
And of course, you can check out Speed Secrets as well. So see more of Ross and to check out more about Speed Secrets. But it is time to take a look at that starting grid as we get ready to go racing for race number 2 tonight. Lauren Heinrich continuing their winning ways in the pro class. 3 race wins in a row. They look for number 4 here in race number 2 of event 2. Rafael Amorim get a start in P2. He'll be on pole for the PCA pro class as we go through a couple of more pros. Cameron Martin, Elliott Skier, and Chris Pies rounding out the top 5 on the starting grid. Starting P6 and second place in the PCA Pro Class, Derwin Kostanak with Grant Talkie for the Pro Class in P7. Leif Peterson, Arthur Chan, and Jim Huth will be starting in 8th, 9th, and 10th to round out the top 10. Jordan Dyer starts P11 with Chris Braun in P12. Joe Steifel P13, Jacob Shum P14 with Pedro Torres rounding out your top 15. 16th will be Dimitri Demakos with Robert Rose in 17th, Kurt Swearingen in 18th, Sean Varwig in 19th with Bill Anderson, rounding out the 20 drivers who are on the grid in these Porsche 911 GT3 Cup 992 machines. Well, it is time to go racing for race number 2 here at Long Beach. It's been all Lauren Heinrich in the 3 checkered flag drops of the season. Who is going to win in the 4th? Green flag is in the air. We're racing again from Long Beach. It's another great start for Heinrich, but you can see a little bit of dancing around as they dive into turn number 1. All of these 992s going to have to hit the hard braking zone of this first corner. Diving in they go. They'll go past the fountain section, a little bit of too wide, back for 3rd place, but at the front, Heinrich is looking to put another big gap as it looks like some contact made between Martineau and Skier for 3rd.
Yeah, going too wide through the fountain section here. That is not a great place to be too wide, but actually nowhere. If we were listening to Ross, nowhere here. That is one of the places you might be able to get by with it a little bit, but as soon as you come out of that fountain section, you're in trouble. Now we watch him coming down here into turn 5, getting on the brakes once again, trying to get through that crossover and onto the back stretch, heading down towards the Firestone area.
They're going to work their way under the bridge and down East Seaside Way towards turn number 9. Of course, racing on the real streets of Long Beach as we go on board with Elliott Skier. Of course, the San Diego region native for Apiapsis Performance Solutions, sitting in 3rd place right now and sitting in 2nd for that pro class as he looks for a bit more time on the track to get by Rafael Amorim, who sits in 2nd place ahead of him. We go on board with Amorim and the Peach State region driver for the PCA Pro class. He is the current leader of this class, sitting P2 overall. And as we still sit on board, diving into turn number 1, you get a real sense of the speed there, Michael, when they're diving into that first corner. That is the fastest straightaway on this course, and it's a long ride down into turn number 1 and a very hard braking zone as well, right into this technical section here past the fountain.
Yeah, once you get on board with one of these cars, that camera shot was beautiful. You get a real feel for the speed. Now, just a couple of quick points about Raphael. He was absolutely amazing in the PCA series that just finished. He was a very consistent driver, putting in lap after lap after lap, and just a joy to watch. He is where he should be. And if anybody's got a chance to put it onto to Heinrich, he's the one. However, I think Heinrich is pretty much checking out here as we take a look on board with Derwin looking out the back of his car at this point.
And Kostenak currently sits second place in that PCA Pro class, but sixth overall as a bit of our pros start to take over, including this man right here for the 311 RS Motorsports machine of Lauren Heinrich. And that 12, he's still pulling away. We've seen the same thing from Lauren that we saw in the first 3 opening races of this campaign, and that is putting a gap to the rest of the field and pulling away. On board with Arthur Chan as the Canadian sits P9 for the PCA Pro class, and P9 overall. It is a little bit further up that PCA Pro ladder, but in a bit of traffic here, as it looks like one of the drivers in front of him getting just a little bit sideways. I believe that was the number 3 of Grant Talkie, and yes, it was almost making contact with that wall, but albeit by a couple of inches, Michael, able to keep off of it.
Yeah, these walls, as mentioned earlier, are absolutely lethal. They will really do a number on your car and end your day. You've got to be careful coming off these corners. There's not a lot of control in these cars. They're very different than the GT3 R, which is the full-on GT3 spec car that you see in some classes like GTD or GT3 AM in Le Mans or GT3 Pro. Same car, but it has ABS, it has better traction control than these cars do. So these cars, you really need to be absolutely precise and perfect when you're putting the power down and when you're on the brakes, either way. So that's, I think what we were watching there was maybe just a little bit of overzealous, getting onto the throttle a little bit too quick and letting that rear end kick around. But you know what? He's a smart driver and he learned from that.
These cars are not easy to drive. Of course, they were used in this season of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup here in the iRacing world, and of course used in the real world as well. So it blends, and it really is challenging both in the real world and the virtual world as we sit on board with Chris Pies, and you can see him coming through that fountain section, getting up on that curb to the inside. And of course, Pies will be racing in an endurance race for World Racing League next week in Mid-Ohio, the weekend of April 8th, I should say, next week in Mid-Ohio. We wish him the best of luck in the real world, but he's running P5 here currently and 4th currently in the pro class of driving. That number 14 machine looking stout right now, sitting at the edge of that top 5 with about a 1.5 second gap over Derwin Kostenak, the next driver that he'll be fighting on the track. And we go back to P10 and on board with Jordan Dyer for the PCA Pro class. He is trying to chase down Arthur Chan, who currently sits just up the road in front of him to the tune of about 4/10 as they go through this another technical portion of this course through, admittedly, a parking lot when it's not designed for this Long Beach street circuit. As one driver goes wide in front, that was Leif Peterson in the 913, making one of those mistakes that, Ross talked about, Michael. Luckily, he was able to bounce back, and Peterson stays in P8, but now a big amount of time was just made up by both Chan and Dyer to try and catch up to this 913.
Yeah, lucky for that Maverick Region driver there, Leif Peterson. If you get off that very tight line that you need to take through that final corner, it can really mess you up. But I think he held on to it quite well as we watch him going through the fountain right here past Bubba Gump and working their way over onto this back half of the track where it gets really tight, really tricky, and weirdly inviting. The section they just came out on is about 4 or 5 cars wide, and this is where you see exactly what Jordan Dyer is trying to do right there. You get a little bit of confidence, you run up into that corner, you want to just stick your nose in, but it's not a great place to do it. Here is the better spot. If you get a brilliant run out of this corner, coming up into that Firestone crossover, you have an opportunity to get your nose in and hopefully make a pass through that crossover.
staying on board as they'll work their way back through turn number 9, diving off of East Seaside Way. Still looking at this now, what was a 3-car battle for the 8th spot, I'd say now is going to turn into a 4-car battle for the 7th spot, as this group has caught up to Grant Talkie. We're on board with now the ACI Motorsports driver in P7 overall, P5 in the current pro class, and he might have a couple of drivers in his rearview mirror sooner rather than later as they catch up to the group in front of them, and we start to see a bit of a stack up here behind our race leaders. Currently the top 3 in a league of their own currently at the moment. 2.3 seconds ahead of second place is your current race leader, Lauren Heinrich, and about 3 seconds back from second place is third place, Elliot Skier. So they are spreading out a little bit, but then from Skier on back, starting to bunch up and get some good racing going. We'll see how many passes are going to be able to be made. We heard from Ross where the passing zones really are, and that they really do come at a premium at this track, Ross. And if you're going to do one of those passing opportunities, he also talked about trying not to bin yourself into the wall, and I think that's what a lot of these drivers are weighing right now, is the risk versus reward. Do you see that out on this track, that some of these drivers might be running a little bit more cautious at the beginning portions of this race just so they don't end up in a wall and having to go into the pit lane?
Yeah, absolutely. There is no reason to push it too hard right now. So Chris Pites, the 3rd car right there, that green car, he and I have raced quite a bit in another series that's somewhat related to Porsche, to the Porsche Club. We have gone door to door, mirror to mirror, nose to tail, around so many tracks. He is a very good driver, and you see right here, he's getting into that brake a little bit early. He's not overdriving the car, but he's staying just where he needs to be close enough. And right now he's closed right back up. So those guys getting away from him did not affect him at all. Now, let's talk about Elliot for a second. Elliot, I've also driven with, not with, but against, in real world racing. And Elliot is one of those drivers who, you put him behind the wheel of a car, he doesn't care what it is. He is just a fast driver. I've watched him go from one car to another, and he is fast in everything. So be expecting these guys to start turning up the wick as we get a little bit deeper into the race, because right now they're happy to be where they are. There's still, about 30 minutes, 31 minutes left in this race. So they don't need to do anything yet. They want to hold on to their position and then make the attack once we get later into this race.
And also talking about not wanting to put anything into the wall. Of course, no fast repairs in this series. So taking away one of those luxuries of the sim racing world of maybe having 1 or 2 fast repairs at their advantage, and kind of making this a little bit more realistic, where if you wreck your car, you are done. You might have to tow it back to the pit lane. You might have to make a stop into the pit lane to try and get some damage repaired, and that is race loss and a bunch of positions and points lost on the track as well. On board with the P8 driver currently of Leif Peterson and that 913 Porsche. He chases still the number 3 of Grant Talkie in front of him, and he can see just how close they get to these outer walls. And one street circuit is like a lot of street circuits. Yes, they might be all different in their layouts, but they're still very much the same, Michael, in the fact that they are inches away from the wall, just trying to stay off of it, maximizing those track limits. It's hard to do when there's really no infield. There really isn't any runoff area to maximize. You got to maximize your distance away from the wall, and that could be inches, could be centimeters, could be a few feet.
Well, you're probably hoping for millimeters, actually. It's all about that patience to bring the precision. You've got to have the precision. You've got to get as close to the wall as you can without hitting it. It's like what I often describe, oh, we've got a little smoke from some tires. People getting caught up a little bit into that one. But it's like what I talk to folks about when they're talking about hiring me as a coach. So if they're going to be instructing, an instructor's job at like a DE event is to severely oversimplify it, and please don't think I'm minimizing it, but it's to keep you out of the wall. And that is a very difficult job, especially with somebody who's brand new. But when you get to the point of wanting a coach, the coach's job is to get you as close to the wall as you can possibly get without actually hitting it. And you watch as these guys come down this little stretch here, they're going to get all the way over, right up next to the wall, right here at the apex even, right up on there. Now, with Martineau, you can expect that. He is also one of those brilliant drivers chasing Elliott's gear right here. These guys are getting dead onto these spots. They use every millimeter all the way out to the wall heading down this backstretch.
Heinrich still leads, and we stay with this battle right here, following that number 64 of Skier, then Martineau, then Pies, as they round out your top 5. No moves being made as they go through the turns 9, 10, and now turn 11 complex, and spits them right back onto the front straightaway of East Shoreline Drive. They'll head through turn number 1 and onto Aquarium Way as we go on board with Martineau, who sits in 4th. He'll have a bit of a slipstream coming off of the number 64. He'll take a look to the inside, but it's not going to be enough. Close to making contact as they dive into turn number 1, and almost getting into the wall there was Cameron Martineau. Now Chris Pies, sitting in P5 in the number 14 machine, is going to try and look for this 4th spot. Where do you think he can make this move, Michael? Because now he was maybe a couple of tenths off. Now he's right on that gearbox.
Well, as you heard Ross and I talking in the pre-race, this is where the 3rd P comes about. Now it's time to pester. So Chris's job right now is just to sit in those mirrors, to go from one mirror to the other and just hold on to him. Elliott's starting to check out a little bit. Elliott's starting to pull away. And what's that going to do? That's going to put a little bit of pressure on Martineau. Martineau now needs to catch back up to him and basically hope he makes a mistake, because both these guys are running incredibly consistent times. And with Chris Pites on your tail, I can tell you from experience, I don't necessarily want Chris Pites behind me, because he's probably going to get around pretty quickly. He is an excellent driver in the sim world and in the real life world. So he is not necessarily the person I want in my mirror. If I were Martineau, I would just be focusing forward to try to hope that I can catch back up to Elliott.
And now Skier is starting to pull away, and it looks like a little bit of time lost from Pies. He's not going to go for that move just yet on the number 98 of Cameron Martineau in front of him. But through this beautiful fountain section, they go again, and still close, still trying to maximize all that he can is Chris Pies, who currently sits in that 5th spot. But on board with Cameron Martineau, and competitor in the pro class of the SRO Esports America Sprint Series on the 23rd of April this season. We wish him good luck in that event. And the North Country region Hardpoint Motorsports driver sits in 4th tonight. Of course, looking for a podium as well, and Elliott Skier sitting in 3rd is that podium ticket for Martineau. How quickly can he get up to him? It looks like Chris Pies is not exactly sitting well in that 5th spot, Michael. That P you talked about of patience might be wearing thin on that number 14.
Yeah, well, looking at Chris and seeing how he's driving, we watch Elliott there take an interesting defensive line and get really wiggly coming out of there. Looks like he's going to go for a quick dive into the pits. Interesting. Now we've got Martineau with Chris Pites chasing him down. I don't want to be Martineau in this case, because Chris is filling up those mirrors. Look at that, right side mirrors. Now he's getting into the brakes, a little bit of left side. Hold on to that rear mirror, get through this corner, and just watch him fill these mirrors as we work our way through the fountain and back onto this later section in the track.
And Skier dove into the pit lane and ended up stopping and towing it right back into his pit stall. He had some damage, not sure what the move into the pit lane was for Elliott Skier, but that number 64 now scored in P16. Another driver who ended up in the pits, Jim Huth, Dimitri Damakos as well, and Sean Varwig also ends up in the pits from P19. Both of those last drivers are 10 laps down. Jim Huth and Elliott Skier now 1 lap down scored in this race. Of course, you can, as a reminder for you, that PCA Sim Racing's social media offers in-race reports, breaking news, and announcements through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. To subscribe, just key in the platform name and add /PCA Sim Racing. Once again, PCA Sim Racing, wherever you can find us, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Now, when we were talking before, I heard a little radio chatter from Elliott saying something about gotta stop hitting the wall. Now, I don't know if he was talking to someone else or talking to himself, but it seems like it may have been a little bit of, hey, Elliott, I'm going to let everyone else know that me, Elliott, I'm actually hitting the wall too much. So I think that may be why he had to take that dive down into the pit.
Well, we can see the damage on that car, and not sure if it's related to that damage. Maybe had some steering damage that he was working with, and maybe that led to him being loose off of that final corner. We'll hopefully grab an update from Skier if he gives us an update a little bit later on. But where we currently stand, we're back focusing on this battle for 6 between Grant Talkie in the 3. Behind him, the 913 Alif Peterson and Jordan Dyer, who sits in 8th in the number 86. And that 913 Alif Peterson season opening, he'll go side by side with the 3, but Grant Talkie on that inside line will have the advantage as they dive back into turn number 8, back on the East C side. Way they go. A little bit of slipstream for the 913 Alif Peterson now. Is he going to be able to use it? He'll take a look to the inside, diving into turn 9. He'll not be side by side when they reach the apex, and still in 7th is the 913. The 3 of Grant Talkie will stay in P6. And talking about that number 3 machine of Grant Talkie, a recent win in both Porsche Sprint Challenge races at Sebring, and a great run for him here tonight as well. Currently P6 for the ACI Motorsports driver, and after starting in P7, up 1 spot from where he began. And Michael, that 913 Alif Peterson is starting to catch back up, but it looks like he's just not close enough whenever they go into a braking zone to use a passing opportunity.
Well, remember, again, when we were talking earlier on with Ross, it's not necessarily about the brakes in this car. It's about how well you get out of the corner. And I think what's happening here is Talkie's getting a little bit better push out of the corner, where you've got Peterson trying to outbrake him going into the corner. Life needs to change his mindset, switch it around, and come off of a corner a lot better. And then I think he's going to have an opportunity to make something happen.
Of course, continuing on now, closing in on halfway done tonight. And now 4 cars have joined this battle as Arthur Chan catches up at the tail end. So 4 Porsche 992s now running together as they go through turn 9. And on board with the Canadian running in the PCA Pro class, Arthur Chan, exactly where he began the night in P number 9, looking to continue his way up the field and gain just a couple of more spots before that checkered flag comes out. But Lauren Heinrich still leading the way now by about 10 seconds, as it looks like a spin at turn number 1 for our second place driver of Rafael Amorim. He'll get back running now in front of Darwin Kostanak, as Cameron Martineau and Chris Pies were able to work their way around. Here's the replay, Michael. Let's see what happened as he dove into 1.
So he's driving down the straight here, gets into his braking zone right up on the line, tries to bring the car around, but just a little bit too late. But he was smart enough to use the escape road. And that was one of the other things Ross and I were talking about during the interview with Ross, is be smart enough to use the escape road and come back to fight again later. We've watched Rafael many races through the past season. He is an excellent driver. He knows what he's doing. So I expect he could work his way back up, possibly get into the fight with Chris and Cameron, but that is going to be quite the feat, since he is about 4 seconds off of those guys right now.
And back to this battle with the focusing on the number 86 of Jordan Dyer, but it's Talkie, Peterson, Dyer, and Chance still running just a couple of tenths apart from each other. And you can see that 913 Alif Peterson wanting to get around Grant Talkie, maybe buying a bit of time still with about 19 minutes left, and maybe just waiting for the right moment to strike. It looks like Talkie was definitely feeling the pressure as he'll try and defend to the inside in turn 1, and backing off to avoid a collision there was Leif Peterson in the 913. Now Jordan Dyer goes to the back bumper, makes a bit of contact with the 913 as they work their way now through turn 5.
Yeah, that gave Dyer a good opportunity to get up in there, but that defensive line that we watched from Talkie was an excellent position to be in. Now, if I had been Leif Peterson in that position, I would have held him down to the wall on the left side. If you're going to go there, fine, I'm going to leave you there, and then I'm moving out at the absolute last second because I get to move again. You don't. So I think next time he comes through there, if he gets that good run out of that turn 11, he may try to pinch him down on the inside next time.
Well, as we put half of tonight's race behind us, it is time to bring you the Midway Race Report presented by Porsche. Lauren Heinrich continues to lead the way at the front of this field. That 311 RS Motorsports machine is looking stout at the front. He's looking for 4 race wins and 4 checkered flags captured this season. Cameron Martineau, after a mistake from Rafael Amorim, now finds himself running in P2 on the leaderboard. Starting in P3, the Hardpoint Motorsports driver is up 1 spot from where he began and swap spots with Chris Pice, who now sits in P number 3. And he started back in 5th, so 2 spots gained for the ACI Motorsports driver. Looking to gain a bit more time as he continues to run in the Pro class here in the PCA Sim Racing event tonight. Rafael Amorim, we mentioned him having that mistake. He currently leads the PCA Pro class, however, but 2 spots lost for the Peach State region driver that started in the 2nd spot. We'll see if he can regain a couple more of those positions on the track, and Derwin Kostanak rounds out the top 5, and starting in 6th, 1 spot gain for the Wild Rose region driver, looking for a bit more time to gain on this course as he still runs in P5. Currently running in P6 is Grant Talkie. Now he leads this line of drivers that have all been close together for the last handful of laps, and 1 spot gain for Talkie and the ACI Motorsports driver, looking for more time, and he's got that number 190 machine of Kostanak in front of him, but he's also got Leif Peterson in the 913 that sits behind him by just a couple of tenths. Now the PCA Pro driver from the Maverick region also up 1 spot, but once more we've seen the impatience from him on that number 3 in front of him. When is he going to make that move, and can drivers give him pressure from behind as Jordan Dyer currently sits in that 8th spot? He is one of our biggest movers of the night, up 3 spots from where he began in P11. The PCA Pro driver looking for more spots on the grid as he tries to get P7 away from Peterson, but trying to get P8 away from him is Arthur Chan, who's currently is exactly where he began in P number 9. The Canadian looking to join this battle and continue to march his way up the overall leaderboard, as well as keep himself in the top 5 of the PCA Pro class. Rounding out the top 10 at the current moment is Chris Braun, the Northeast region driver for the PCA Pro class, currently running mid-pack overall and in the PCA Pro class, but up 2 spots from where he began. Definitely not a bad night for the number 258. We have to go back 6 seconds to find the next driver on the track. That is Joe Stifel. He's up 2 spots from where he started in P13, and the Chicago native just going to look for a bit more time and might have a bit of pressure as 9/10 back is Bill Anderson in that number 41. Now he is tonight's biggest mover of the race, starting in P19, P20 in our telemetry, so he is up whether 8 or 7 spots. He still is the biggest mover of the night from the Longhorn region. He continues to run in the PCA Pro class and also in the PCA Pro class for the Shenandoah region, up 4 spots, Robert Rose. He is a bit off the pace, about to the tune of 7.5 seconds from Bill Anderson in front, so he's running just to get those points, get those laps on the board. Same thing for Jacob Schum, who currently sits in P14, exactly where he began the night, but the Carolinas region driver just gonna look for some points for that PCA Pro class. Kurt Swearingen, also another one of those drivers who ran into a bit of trouble, and it looks like he's about to go another lap down as he currently sits 1 lap down, still up 3 spots where he began in that ACI Motorsports number 17, but Jim Huth will round out the top 16 and the 16 drivers that are currently on the track. The Hudson Champlain region rounds out the drivers who are currently on the racetrack. Elliot Skier, Dimitri Damakos, and Sean Varwig in that order round out the 19 drivers that took the green flag. However, Skier, Damakos, and Varwig are currently off the track. This concludes tonight's Midway Race Report presented by Porsche, as we have about 14 minutes remaining in tonight's event. Still Lauren Heinrich at the front, and Michael, that gap has not gotten any shorter. In fact, it's gotten much larger. Now 16.5 seconds is the lead for the 12.
I think by the time he gets through this little section, we're going to be around 17 seconds. 16 3/4 at the moment. He is putting on an absolute clinic here. Not a bad driver by any stretch of the imagination. He is a brilliant driver. He's one of those kind of alien level when you talk to people in iRacing and they go, oh, well, that guy's an alien. This is one of those, he is absolutely one of those alien level drivers, and in real life as well. So I like to say, I like to think I'm an alien when it comes to real life driving. I can bring something out in the car. I am not as good in the simulator. Heinrich, though, he has it in spades all the way around. He does it in the sim. He does it in real life. This guy really knows what to do behind the wheel, be it real or simulated.
And exactly that, and showing why he is at the lead. It's not by any fate of luck, it is by pure skill. And he continues to pull away from that second place battle that is now Martineau and Pies, who are on board with now, and continuing to just keep that pressure on the 98 of Martineau in front of him. However, not close enough to make any moves for that second spot just yet. And as time runs out, we're south of 13 minutes to go now, and very soon we're going to be in what feels like just the last couple of moments of this race, Michael. And once we go south of 10 minutes, do you think these drivers are going to start to get a little bit more aggressive? Because there is a handful of drivers that could be within striking distance of the drivers in front of him. We go back to this battle right here where everybody's basically on each other's tailgate. Do you think they're going to start to get a little bit more aggressive and we might see some of these bold moves come out?
I think in this little stretch here, Dyer, Peterson, and Chan, we're going to see something happen here. Peterson has been making some inroads. He's been testing here and there. He's gotten a good run out of a corner, and he gets his nose over there, tries to see where he can get. He's even been mirror to mirror going into turn one. So he knows he has the ability to get in there. He just has to find that exact opportunity. And with only 10 minutes to go and looking at these very quick lap times at about 1:20 per lap, it's going to be tough for him to find that opportunity. He kind of needs to force a mistake, but trying to do that on a driver like Grant Talkie, good luck.
Good luck indeed, and we'll see if anybody ends up maybe going a little bit too bold, ending up in one of the outside walls here at Long Beach. But with just south of 11.5 minutes to go, some of these drivers are going to need to do a little bit more work if they want to get within striking distance of the driver in front of them. And getting a little bit wide off of that fountain section was the driver that we were just on board with of Jordan Dyer, as he continues to try and chase down Grant Talkie in front of him, but has Arthur Chan. He has more drivers that he is fighting with, along with Leif Peterson, as well as they traded spots just a couple of laps ago, and now Dyer sits P7, Leif Peterson down into P8, back to where he began the night and exactly where he started on the grid. But couple of drivers starting to space out as well, but now Grant Talkie has gapped himself just a little bit from this group, as now Dyer, Peterson, and Chan are left to battle with each other as they go back through the turns 9, 10, and 11 complex here at Long Beach.
Yeah, now this is the section where you really need to be thinking way ahead. This is where you have to set up your pass for turn 1. Not at turn 11, but at actually about turn 9. When you come into 9, you have to be thinking about your pass at turn 1. And if you can get things to line up exactly the way they worked in your head, then you can make the pass. As we watch these guys coming down here towards turn 1, going to get into the brakes right there, and they're just going to stay in line this time. They all had really good runs out of turn 11. No gains to be made, but this is where the pressure starts coming on. You were just talking about, is it time to start putting on the pressure? Yeah, this is it. This is where you want to be making those little pushes here and there. Get the nose out a little bit more this time. Get a little bit closer to the bumper. We already saw a little bumper kiss earlier onto, I think it was Peterson from Chan. I think it was, as they went through that section. So yeah, this is really the time that you need to be making those bold moves that try to assert your dominance on the driver in front of you or behind you.
And I think that is the goal for a lot of these drivers, is just really to assert that dominance, especially so early in this campaign. Of course, a 7-event season for this PCA Sim Racing GT3 Cup. And we have Long Beach here for event 2, but event 3 in April will be at Laguna Seca, then Watkins Glen, then Road America, Mosport, Road Atlanta to round out this calendar. So many unique tracks, and Long Beach fits right in with that uniqueness. The only pure street circuit that we will be on in this campaign, and great to see these drivers running around virtual Long Beach. Of course, also one of the newer tracks on the iRacing service as well. A great season that is up ahead with a lot of purpose-built tracks, but there's something so special about a street circuit, you know, whether it's the streets of Monaco, whether it's the streets of Long Beach here in the US. Just street circuits always bring just a certain energy about them, whether it's real world and virtual. Michael just always seems to just be a little bit more energetic than the purpose-built racetracks that, you know, are normally run in a lot of series.
Well, I think a lot of that comes actually from the pucker factor, because when you get right up close to that wall and you're doing 200 kilometers, 250 kilometers an hour, 150 miles an hour, it gets to boo as we watch Chris Pites try to get in there. Oh, this is actually really interesting now. We got Chris Pites really putting on the pressure on Martineau. He might have an opportunity here. He's got a little bit more speed as we're coming down the straightaway across the start-finish line. Now watch Martineau hold that left side. Chris needs to hold him down to that left side right there. Don't let him come back over. Compromise his entry to the corner. Hold him there. Now he's gotten in his head. Right here, trying to get up side by side into, oh my, he's gonna make the pass. He makes it around. Chris Pites takes it for second place through that wonderful little twisty back and forth of the fountain section.
A beautiful move by Chris Pies to put him into second place. Now on the bottom step of the podium for Cameron Martineau. Can he respond? 7 minutes to go. No pressure for Lauren Heinrich at the front, but the pressure is all on for this second and third place battle, as well as the top 3 overall, but also top 3 for the pro class here tonight from virtual Long Beach. Back through the turn 9, 10, and 11 complex to go back onto the front straightaway of East Shoreline Drive. This is going to be a big moment here for Cameron Martineau. Will he be able to get the same slipstream, the same run into turn 1 that was able to give Chris Pies that second spot away? He gets a little bit loose. Is that going to be a momentum killer down the front straightaway? And as the gap went from about 3/10 up to 4.5, that could be the end of this battle between Pies and Martineau. Back into turn 1. Can Martineau respond yet? It doesn't look like he's going to have anything for the number 14 just yet. And as they enter back through the fountain section, Chris Pies holds the second spot, but Martineau still putting that pressure on in the rear view.
Yeah, I think Cameron might have started driving angry for a little bit there, but Cameron is a smart driver. He is not going to let that anger get in the way. He knows he needs to sit back right now, take a deep breath. He's got just under 6 minutes to go in this race. That's enough time to relax, get your heart rate down, get your breathing at a good rate, and then make a good attack, just like Chris did on him. That attack from Chris as he came through there was perfectly timed. It came because Martineau made a mistake. Now, it was coming out of 11, got a little bit wiggly, and lost the speed down the straightaway. Can Martineau cause Pites to make that same mistake? He's got a couple of laps to do it, and it's going to be a very interesting finish. I think we're going to see just a nose at the finish here.
Side by side again between Jordan Dyer and Grant Talkie. Talkie gets a little bit too far to that inside on that rumble strip. He got a little bit loose, had to wash up the racetrack. Doesn't look like any slowdown penalties for that number 3. He'll continue to race on, but almost hits the wall again off of turn 11. How is this gonna go as they dive into turn 1 once again? Less than 5 minutes to go now. It looks like Jordan Dyer tried to take a peek to the outside. Now defending that inside line is Grant Talkie. How aggressive is Dyer willing to get? He'll go side by side into turn 1. Can he hold strong just like Chris Pies did for second? It looks like Talkie's gonna have him cleared as they go into the fountain section. Maybe a bit of contact, maybe a bit of bumping for these two drivers battling for P6, but the 86 machine of Dyer is gonna have to settle for 7th currently at the moment as they go through turn 5 onto West Shoreline Drive. Michael, looks like he might have another passing opportunity heading into turn number 9, but for now, Dyer has to settle to look at that rear bumper of the number 3.
Yeah, everybody has clearly turned the wick up to absolute full right now. Everybody's doing every little thing they can. Watch how close these guys are getting to the wall. Unless they're in a defensive posture, they are going to be making use of every last micrometer of track space they've got, going back into that corner where he had a bit of a jump over there. And I can tell you that is a perfectly legal jump there. You are not going to get a corner cut penalty for that. The only downside is it does make this car a little bit bouncy because you don't have as much control in the dampers of this car. Now, weaving his way down the straightaway past the start finish line, we've got Talkie just trying to hold on to that position, doing a nice job, but man, is this going to be a pressured ending. He holds over to that inside line, trying to keep the position down for himself, goes into the braking zone, captures it back, holds onto the position as they go through turn one and into the fountain section.
These four drivers still running nose to tail, and Grant Talkie with the defensive moves heading down the front straightaway into turn one has been able to hold on to this 6th overall spot. But they continue to run together. The clock continues to wind down. Just passing the start finish line now is Lauren Heinrich, your race leader. Looks like we might have maybe 2 laps or 3 laps to go. We'll see exactly when Lauren Heinrich comes back across the start finish line. Safe to assume, as the last lap time run by your race leader was a 1:19.5, if that clock is south of 1 minute 19 seconds, it'll be the white flag displayed by Barney the Flagman. But if it is anything over that, you'll have to go around one more time before that clock expires. Checking in with this second place battle, and Cameron Martineau for Hardpoint Motorsports, well, hasn't been able to do anything for Chris Pies. It looks like he'll get close into one, but just not close enough to make a move for that spot. Pies, after that move heading through the fountain section that they're heading through now to get second spot, has been relatively unchallenged for it, Michael, as Cameron Martineau has been able to talk back, but here comes Dyer taking a peek to the outside of Grant Talkie. Is it gonna be enough? And through turn one, that is contact made to the wall, and Leif Peterson gets thrown off the racing line. He falls to P9.
Yeah, it looked like Talkie had actually fallen back, and Leif Peterson just got caught up in a bad position there. And I think Jordan Dyer made it through, and Grant Talkie was able to hold on to that position. So good driving, good heads up, awareness of what's going on around you. That is incredibly important when you are racing, whether it be here in the sim world or the real world. As we watch that replay there, just a little bounce off the wall, tiny bit too late into the brakes. It's a tough day, though, for Leif Peterson.
And as we currently stand, there is Lauren Heinrich in the 311 RS Motorsports machine at the front of the field. Now, he came across the line with about 90 seconds left, and that is north of that 1:19.5 that he has ran in both of his last lap times. So we can expect the white flag to come out this time by, with about 20 seconds still remaining on that clock when he comes by the start-finish line. So this time by, Lauren Heinrich will look for that white flag and try and get his 4th win in 4 races in the 2 events that we have had for the PCA Sim Racing Pro GT3 Cup Series. Of course, event 2 here from virtual Long Beach after a successful opening round from Sebring. Lauren Heinrich coming through the final corner. They'll look to the flag stand where Barney the Flagman is ready to wave that white flag. There'll be one final lap around the virtual Long Beach street circuit for Lauren Heinrich, looking for race win number 4. He needs one more perfect lap here, Michael, and he hasn't put a foot wrong in the first 30 laps. I don't want to jinx him, but he is looking like this is going to be just another easy win for Heinrich, and just shows his skill here in the sim racing world.
Yeah, no commentator's curse here. We do not want any commentator's curse. He is 25 seconds out in front. Now, part of that is because we have an incredible battle still going on with Chris and Cameron. Pikes, Martineau, these guys are so close, and I think Chris Pites wishes that previous lap had been the last lap, because Martineau is right up on his tail as we watch Heinrich working his way around for this final lap, getting out onto that backstretch, perfectly placing the car, coming up on lap traffic, not going to be worried about it, probably even to just back off a little bit on this lap to not get too close to this. But you know, maybe he just wants to do all his laps under 1 minute 20. I don't know, but he has been absolutely burning them up today.
Race number 1 win at Sebring. Race number 2 win at Sebring. Race number 1 win at Long Beach. Race number 2 win at Long Beach. 4 for 4 in the PCA Pro GT3 Cup Series. Heinrich on top again in virtual California.
Yeah, going back, take a look at Chris Pites trying to defend as he has Cameron Martineau right up his tailpipe, sitting up underneath that wing, coming into turn 11. This is his last opportunity to make it. Chris Pites going a little bit wide, getting a little bit wiggly coming out of that final corner, trying to get just around him, looking left, looking right, but just not going to make it. Chris Pites for second, Cameron Martineau for third.
Unfortunately, not enough of a run off that final corner, but also coming across the line, you can see him out the windshield of Rafael Amarim. The PCA Pro class also had their, of course, own class win. Pro class win went to Heinrich, who also got the overall win, but Derwin Kostanak is going to be victorious for the Wild Rose region in the PCA Pro class tonight. So our 2 class winners, Lauren Heinrich and Derwin Kostanak, as we wait for the rest of the field to make their way across the line. The battles have, of course, ended, and Bill Anderson we're on board with now, up 8 spots from where he originally began the night, P20. He is tonight's biggest mover of the race, and a fantastic run from that number 41 machine, but nobody was catching Lauren Heinrich tonight. And the number 12 machine is back into victory lane and back to the top step of the podium now 4 times over in this season of the PCA Pro GT3 Cup Series. Heinrich wins to the tune of 26.458 seconds. Chris Pies and Cameron Martineau round out your overall podium and your podium for the Pro class tonight. Derwin Kostanak ends up 4th, and the winner of the PCA Pro class with Rafael Amarim and Jordan Dyer rounding out your podium for the PCA Pro class tonight. Arthur Chan, Leif Peterson, Grant Talkie, and Chris Braun will round out the top 10 on our race results. Finishing in P11 was Joe Stifel. Bill Anderson finishes P12 with Robert Rose finishing P13. Jacob Schum P14 with Kurt Swearingen rounding out your top 15. Jim Huth in 16th, Elliot Skier 17th, Sean Varwig 18th, excuse me. 19th goes to Dimitri Demakos, and finishing P20 is Pedro Torres, who unfortunately did not take the green flag tonight. So that is your full race results for tonight's second race from the virtual Long Beach Street Circuit, and another win for Lauren Heinrich now makes it 4 race wins in a row. He joins us now in the broadcast booth, and Lauren, just another amazing race for you out on the track, and that 311 RS Motorsports machine was cooking out there tonight. How was that race from your perspective? Must have been a bit easy once you got that gap going.
Thank you, first of all. Yeah, it may have looked easy, but it was not. I was pushing myself quite a lot to keep those consistent lap times. But as you say, the car today was amazing. I was having no issues. Also, Dimitri was super fast. Yeah, when I woke up today, I saw his lap times. I knew I have to stretch my legs today. So I'm really proud of his performance. Such a shame what happened. Think he would have made a really good result today. But anyways, I'm really happy that we made this result and could extend our championship lead.
And of course, I love to hear that you were still pushing yourself out at the front of this field, because even with that gap and maybe not in the battle with everybody else throughout the midfield, you're still racing your own race out there at the front. So what was the main challenges for you? Did you feel like it was a bit of an uphill battle even with the speed you had over the rest of the field? Do you still feel like you still had some challenges on the course that you had to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, yes, because the track, it's so specific. It's so dangerous. If you drive 105%, it's way too much. So you always have to keep with 95%, push in the more easier corners and be careful in dangerous corners. So that was the biggest challenge for me. Obviously, also now I'm a bit tired. Maybe it's 5 a.m., but the adrenaline was still there. It kept me awake. And yeah, I just loved the track. It was my very first race on this one. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next ones on this track.
And of course, now with 4 race wins for you, you end up still at the top of the points championship. Are you focused on the points? Is that what you're going towards? Is that what you're working towards, to be that champion at the end of this long campaign at the end of the month of September?
Well, yes, I'm of course looking at the points. I'm trying to win as many races as possible, because I never know if I have to miss one race, then you already miss out on 50 points. So I have to score as many points as possible, keep the gap. For me, it was a bit lucky that Rafael made the mistake. And yeah, we'll see. We'll work from here. I think we did the best possible now, and I think maybe next weekend or next race weekend, we can maybe score a nice team result with Dimitri. Yeah, he's getting faster and faster, so I'm really confident.
And moving forward, of course, into the next round from Virtual Laguna Seca, can you make it another 2 wins, or do you think that'll be a track where you're kind of coming from the back and maybe going uphill in the battle?
I like Laguna Seca quite a lot. Yeah, I also don't have so much experience there, but yeah, I will practice for sure. And it's generally I like all the tracks in the US. So I don't have any track which I don't like. All of them are awesome, really old school, and looking forward to go to Laguna Seca.
Love the confidence, and looking forward to seeing you at Laguna Seca in 1 month's time. But congratulations, Lauren, on your 2 race wins tonight, and go celebrate with the team. Congratulations.
Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Great to hear from our now 4-time race winner this season, Lauren Heinrich, who grabs the overall win in the win of the pro class. And standing by with 2nd place overall in the pro class of Chris Peiss, it's Michael Johnson.
Chris, that was so no commentators curse this time. I kept you clear of that one, but we did talk about you quite a lot. And I got to say, that pass, I have no words for how well that went and how perfectly executed that pass was. How long did it take you to plan that and put that pass together?
Pretty much the whole race. It was, I was sitting there just kind of watching Cameron, and Cameron is a great driver, and that's the only reason that worked. Was we both have a tremendous amount of respect for each other, and kudos to Cameron, because if he didn't hold his line, it was going to end in tears. But I know the kind of driver he is, and that was going to be the only shot. Long Beach is a bunch of waiting, and then all of a sudden a bunch of action all at once, and then a bunch of waiting again. And so when the opportunity comes, you got to take it.
So it took a while, like you said, the whole race to put that together, and the precision that you showed through this race, it was like you didn't put a wheel wrong anywhere. You've got to be just sweating buckets at this point, unless you've got like a supercharged air conditioning going on. Are you exhausted, or are you ready to go for some more racing in Q Cup or something?
Yeah, I'm a little warm right now, but I credit it to doing so much endurance racing. I'm ready to go. Let's go again. Let's do the 3rd round.
Well, fantastic racing today. I honestly, you were probably 80% of the broadcast, because with you guys, with you and Cameron, and then one other race that was going on back in the field, it was so tight, and it was very difficult to switch back and forth and watch who was doing what. I'm glad we caught that pass as it happened. So who do you have to thank for this race and that brilliant pass?
I'd like to thank my teammates, ACI Motorsports and Kurt, for fielding a team in this series. It's been great. And thank you guys so much for putting on a great show each and every week. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right. That sounds awesome. Thanks for being here. And right now, it looks like we have our 3rd place finisher, Cameron Martineau, ready to field a few questions.
And Cameron Martineau with a very valiant effort to finish in P3 tonight. And it's exactly where you started, Cameron. I know you were running in 2nd place for a bit there, but what challenges were you facing out on the course that brought you still down to the bottom step of the podium, but albeit still in P3?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I mean, for sure, I was struggling quite a bit with, the tires, and, constantly having someone, right there in the rear view. I mean, these Cup cars, it was pretty apparent with the 991, but even still with the 992, it's still very easy to keep someone to be in the draft behind someone. So, having that constant reminder that Chris was behind me, and, I was saying the entire race that hairpin is just a killer with a Formula wheel. So, every single time I'd see him, jump right up onto my rear bumper, it was always just a constant reminder. So, just really managing the tires and just trying not to drive in my mirrors were the main things I was dealing with. So I'm still very, very happy about a P3 considering, everything that happened in round one. This is a really, really strong result.
And moving forward in the campaign as well, is this strong result going to give you a little bit more confidence heading to Laguna Seca, Watkins Glen, Mosport, and the rest of the tracks on the calendar?
Absolutely, absolutely. Those Mosport, Watkins Glen, some of my favorite tracks. And, my teammate Chris Walsh couldn't be here tonight. And so we were lacking a bit on prep work, which, he's enjoying himself at Disney World right now. So well-deserved vacation. So hopefully, next round we'll be coming back stronger than ever.
We look forward to seeing you continue this campaign in the PCA Pro GT3 Cup Series. Congratulations to you and the Hardpoint Motorsports team on this P3 effort. Congratulations again. We look forward to seeing you in the rest of the year.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And great to hear from our top 3 finishers overall and of the pro class tonight from virtual Long Beach. And Michael, we saw some fireworks. We saw a couple of great battles out there on the course, but I think everything we talked about leading up to this event with Ross really came true. It was a very tough track for these drivers to overcome, but once they did, we saw some great racing.
Yeah, it was almost as if Ross and I scripted this before and then went in and had our interview and foreshadowed everything that was going to happen in this race. And I just have to highlight a couple of things. The brilliant driving from everybody out there. And we saw PCA Pro and Pro in, racing door-to-door, nose-to-tail, and all through. It wasn't, despite what we see here with 1, 2, 3 being the pros, you got to remember, we had one driver up there who was not one of the pros. He was actually in second place. That was Amarim. He was up there and he was in second place, really controlling it until one little tiny mistake. And that is the real killer for this track. You can get away with mistakes like that on other tracks, like the ones we're about to go to. So I think in the next few races, we're going to see a little bit of maybe an overdriving situation that doesn't get you in trouble like it did today, because there's not a wall there. It's just a little bit of dirt, and you can take that 1X running through the dirt a little bit, and it's not going to hurt you that much. So while there was some fantastic driving going on today, I think we're going to see even more through the rest of this season. And I am literally, I'm not kidding you, if you had a camera on me right now, you would see I am on the edge of my seat for what is coming for the rest of this season.
And we hope that you'll join us for all remaining events of this PCA Pro GT3 Cup Series season at Laguna Seca, Watkins Glen, Road America, Mosport, and Road Atlanta, live here on Podium Esports. A reminder that PCA Sim Racing social media offers in-race reports, breaking news, and announcements through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. All you gotta do to subscribe is key in the platform name and add /PCA Sim Racing. Once again, that is PCA Sim Racing, wherever you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure that you join us as well for the next PCA Sim Racing event of Series 8. It is at Sebring, and it is Friday, April 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern, and that is right here live on Podium Esports. Another big thank you to our sponsor for tonight, Porsche, and a big thank you to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, and a huge thank you to our team tonight, Michael, Ryan, Cameron, and Dougie. None of this is possible without everybody at Podium Esports, Ryan Bauer, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore. I've been your host, Joshua Lee, and we thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing, sponsored by Porsche. We'll see you on April 21st for the next round of the PCA Pro GT3 Cup Series from virtual Laguna Seca. But for now, we are saying good night from virtual Long Beach.